G7 and the NATO issued unprecedented communique against the CCP, and why is it, and what does that mean?
How did CCP respond to it, and what would happen from here?
Welcome to Wei and
Kathy show.
Yeah, all right, okay. So yeah, today, the major news is about the G7, the communique, I think, the communiques that was issued by the G7 leaders and also the NATO. Okay, so Biden is in New York, and this is he's in the UK, and then the leaders of the seven largest democratic industrial countries of the world got together there, and then they did something that they never did before, and so because never in the history of the both G7 and the NATO did they issue anything explicit against China, okay, and today the comment says that China is absent from G7, but it's still the big elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's in the front and the center of G7. Mainly, they are among the six, decisions that they came up with. The most outstanding one would be is China. So what is it about? And so basically, first there's basically two communicate. One's by the leaders, and in the communique says this. Okay, hear me out. We will continue to consult on collective approach to challenging non-market policies and practices which undermine the fair and the transparent operation of the global economy. So basically, by reading that, this looks like just official language, anything with teeth there. So the term is called a non-market policy. So in that sense, so China always want China to be listed as a market economy. All right. So here, basically, they said, no, you're not a market economy. You got this non-market policies, and which undermines the fair and the transparent operation of the global economy. So basically, this has to do with the current rule. And then also, this is the first thing on economy. The second, calling on China to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms, especially in relation to Xinjiang and those rights, freedom and high degree of autonomy for Hong Kong, enshrined in the Sino-British Joint Declaration and the Basic Law. So this is the first time the West, okay, European countries as well as U.S. joined together to speak out loudly on the Hong Kong. So essentially, Hong Kong was lost to the CCP rule. It's essentially invasion. And other things that G7 communique also mentioned about the importance of the peace and the stability across the Taiwan Strait, and encouraged a peaceful resolution of the cross-strait issues. Okay, those just look at the pretty humdrum language, but it's very, very relevant because the CCP is seriously thinking about taking over Taiwan. Okay, and because it's way more powerful military-wise than Taiwan. So, and then another major point is the G7 said we call for a timely, transparent, expert-led and science-based WHO-convened Phase 2 COVID-19 origin study, including as recommended by the experts' report in China. So again, this is saying that we're going to chase down the accountability of the COVID-19 in China.
Yeah, the only thing is I think people would still question it's rely on World Health Organization to do it, whether they can do such a transparent, expert-led, science-based investigation is still in question.
Yeah, and other things has to do with the East and the South China Sea. CCP has been maneuvering there pretty strongly. Okay, and disregard of the protests from all the other neighboring countries, and also about the labor camp. Okay, it doesn't seem so labor camp. The clause got into the communiques. Okay. Mm-hmm. But White House issued a separate statement saying that the use of all forms of forced labor in global supply chain shall be dealt with. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so without naming CCP, but it means CCP. Okay, that's
don't you think it's interesting that White House had to issue another separate statement?
Yeah, what's your guess?
Yeah, why is that?
I think the other six nations, cannot come up with a consensus. that took it, into their own hand and then issue a separate statement.
Yeah, I interviewed an expert, professor of diplomat and history.
Yeah, who's the former ambassador to Mongolia, right?
Yeah, we can share with you her opinion a bit later.
Okay, so next let's move on to the NATO communique. And it mentioned China for over 10 times, okay? And then this is, again, first time that since NATO was founded, okay, the first time for a NATO communique to mention about China. All right, it says as such, China's stated ambitions and assertive behavior present systematic challenges to the rule-based international order, okay? And NATO is concerned about China's coercive policies, which is a clear reference to the repression of the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. And then, so basically that's the thing. And what come as sort of like a surprise is that indeed the G7 was very well unified, and in their in the tone against the CCP, but the communique did not mention about any concrete follow-up measures, right? But still, by all the standard, because if we reverse the time, we go back to the time, the G7 and the NATO never speak out strongly against China. So back then, the most they mentioned about North Korea, they mentioned about Iran, sometimes Russia. That's as far as they went. So this is the first time they openly and clearly designate the CCP as the systematic challenge. So by any standard, it's still some good progress. So,
Yeah,
but how to understand it?
Okay, before that, we just share a little bit how CCP's response.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So.
So first, by the way, just remember us, right? Last week, Xi Jinping issued this order telling his diplomats that we should use the language so that to show China is trustworthy, lovely, remember that, lovely, and respectable, okay? Use those words, okay? Stay low, be humble, be modest, and now let's see what they say.
Right. So CCP's official media, the mouthpiece, didn't respond strongly. Abroad, only the Chinese ambassador in UK issued a kind of strong statement criticizing the G7 communique on the Xinjiang, Uyghurs, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and other issues, and saying that it's interfering, it's China's internal affair, which is their, just a cliche. And they express its strong dissatisfaction and firm opposition. So inside China, actually the state media didn't really report the contents of the G7 summit communique, but instead pointing out that the summit just with the appearance of unity, but inside it pointed out G7 was not unified, unaligned. So that's like in a nutshell how the CCP is responding to the G7 communique. So then I interviewed the Professor Alicia Kempe, right, who was a former diplomat to Mongolia, and she's also an expert in history and also the South, like Asia and the China affairs. So she said the biggest takeaway is the atmospheric, and also the two parts. The first is the atmospheric, and the second part is the real substance takeaways from the summit. Okay. So what does that mean? So atmospheric, she really is by comparing this towards the previous G7. Is from the last G7, everybody remembered how President Trump, right, was interacting with those European leaders. So this time, the atmospheric shows its more harmonious relationship between U.S. and the Europe countries. So actually, Alicia Kempe said it's actually it really means something actually in terms of the foreign affairs, because in the foreign affairs, when you have such a harmonious atmospheric, especially in terms of Russia and China, it actually means some of the countries probably will change their foreign policies towards China. Okay, so there's some meaning, but in substance, she said actually all the policies that the Trump administration implemented to the last G7, it was basically not changed. There's no change in terms of the tariffs, and in terms of how it's demanding the NATO countries to pay most of its cost. Yeah, it's basically no change. So the Biden administration didn't change anything mostly, and she estimated that there won't be any change before the 2022 election. Okay, so that's one part. But remember, we were talking about how White House actually issued a separate statement. Yeah, in regards to how it stands on the what was that? Just really condemning the human rights abuse during its forced labor in the supply chains. So, in terms of that, Dr. Kempe, actually, her viewpoint is that because the G7, most of the countries, they are just really interested in the economic factors. So they are still really, they are kind of still emphasize on the economic or trade relationship with China. So some of them are afraid to, just playing such a strong role against CCP. So that's one part. And but in the end, such a unanimous stance anti-CCP government is still very unique, and she feels there's still some meaningful meanings in it. And why is that? Okay, let's listen to C3.
And so our own citizens and those who remember the deaths of their loved ones are pressuring them to make China more accountable.
So really, Professor Kempe just feel that the main reason is because of this pandemic. This pandemic really makes those countries, especially they got pressure from their people, their citizens, because they lost loved ones in hundreds of, even the millions, right? So, and they also starting to realize, the bad theory it's not really carefully studied theory. So, and so she just feel this is how the G7 countries, they actually can come out unanimously against the CCP government. And I asked her, would this have an impact on the CCP ruling? Professor Alicia Kempe said, actually, in the past 30 years, after 1989, the Tiananmen massacre, the CCP government, in order to avoid economic and political punishment by the United States, they decided to expand its foreign investment and the trade into like Europe countries and Southeast Asia region. And they felt actually it was successful because they were able to insert a wedge between the United States or the NATO, which is a traditional West free, free countries. And Europe. So they use this type of economic and trade benefit to kind of attract the European countries a little bit more. If, for example, even though such countries like Poland and Hungary, they are opposed communist, but they accept CCP's investment. So that's how the Chinese Communist leadership feel that it is a good strategy until the pandemic. Okay, so the pandemic makes those people in those countries starting to change their view on China. Let's listen to C4.
It's just that they see that what China was doing in this very specific technology, high technology, medical technology, and you can look at other things like cybersecurity, like outer space. These are very specialized high-tech areas, which most people don't care about, don't know about, don't follow, that suddenly this thing could spring into the rest of the world and be very, very destructive.
Yeah, so she felt that after this pandemic, people starting to think and even suspect, those their interaction with the Chinese entrepreneurs or the Chinese workers who went into their country. And initially they thought, maybe those entrepreneurs from China, they are also have some free market mind, right? And free enterprise mind. But now they just suspect maybe they are, they just only want to make money under capitalist system, but they are still controlled by the Chinese Communist government or the military, and the motivation behind them, what they do might, have some secret motivation. So that she felt that's starting really to change people's view on China. And on the other hand, she felt that actually it is really because the Chinese Communist government, its characteristic is it's never admit mistake. No matter this is a truly just a mistake, an accident for the virus leaked, or it has a military operation, or for, as some people said, it's a biochemical weapon. We don't know, but no matter what, the Chinese Communist government, they just don't admit it's their
fault.
Yeah, it's their fault. Not like in Japan or in Korea or Asian countries. If such thing happen, the leader, whoever is responsible, will come out. Will bow, will say sorry, and then will, just come down, right? Step down. And that would never happen in China. And so, but actually, Alicia Kempe said that, but this actually won't help their international image as they want to, as they try to say, just present the trustworthy, or lovely, or respectable image of China. So basically, Professor Kempe said she just wondered this could just have a detrimental effect on the CCP's ruling in China.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, what was the consequence? At the end of it, I will just give my observation, my opinion. But before that, I still want to go back to a little bit on the China's response. And one of our viewers, Xin Jiliu, you said, I started late. Did Kathy and Wei comment on China's perspective on Biden's performance in G7? Well, not as much per se, but I just want to share with you that China's response on this communiques, on the joint declaration. Remember, Xi Jinping instructed his people, his diplomats, to present China as a country trustworthy, lovely, and respectable. And then the CCP's embassy in UK issued this statement right away. He said, the G7 twisted the truth, reversed right and wrong, deliberately slander, interfere in the internal affairs of China, and has this sinister intentions. Okay, all the familiar word that we've been knowing that China has been saying, and then also the newspaper, the three newspaper. One is called 参考消息, reference news. This is like internal party news digest. It says the communiques of the G7 summit is a paper full of absurdity. And then the Xinhua News Agency called this group of seven as a small circle. By the way, this small circle represented 60% of the wealth of the world and 50% of the, GDP of the world. And then the Global Times have an editorial saying that G7 communicates is trying to create a situation to intimidate China, and we Chinese, whatever you are trying to pull, it gets old. We don't mind things like that. Okay, so it doesn't look like very trustworthy, and especially not as lovely, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, they cannot hide it, right? As we reported to you that was the original instruction by Xi Jinping, saying that to be trustworthy and lovely and so on and so forth. So when they were like the warrior fighter, okay, wolf warrior, right? That came from Xi too. He just when he found out he went too far, he tried to reverse it back. How can people be tricked by him? It's just impossible, right? There's no turning back. It's really on the way of no return. And then on this particular time, in the UK, on the Cromwell, the G7, as we know, that they are United States, UK, and France, and Germany, Canada, Italy, and Japan. They also invited the head of state of Australia, India, South Korea, and South Africa. Okay, and also the leader of the European Union and the General Secretary of the United Nations. So basically, it's pretty much just everybody except Xi Jinping, mm-hmm. And then while they were planning for all these international issues, Xi Jinping, the so-called leader, the supreme leader of the number 2 economy, was excluded. And then, so in the meantime, the only so-called allies of the CCP one is Russia. Russia now, they are having the meeting with, I think, Biden the day after, right? So Biden is pretty much treating his relationship with the CCP as a bargaining chip. Okay, mm-hmm. you wanted me to go against CCP? What benefit do I get? That's Biden's approach right now, and also another newly gained ally is called Iran. And Iran just announced lately there's a major progress with the nuclear negotiation with the United States. I'm not saying that the negotiation is good, but that did upset the media of CCP very much. They do not even mention Iran lately. So they basically lose all their partners. One particular one I want to mention is Italy. Okay, remember Italy is the first European nation that joined CCP's One Belt, One Road initiative. Right. Right. They try to extend this so-called one road through the land, one belt through the sea, all the way to the Europe. And then Italy became the first country that joined that initiative at the end of the March of 2019. So what happened now? Okay, so in February, a new prime minister, who was the president of the European Bank, right? And his name is Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi, he came when he got appointed. He pretty much just not appointed when he was elected. Okay, he reversed Italy's policy, and then stopped a major acquisition that done by Chinese government's a fund, and to buy a semiconductor company in Italy. And then it looked like that he just doesn't want to do that, but actually underlying that is really, the virus has really hit Italy very badly. Right. And then, the public opinion really is against the CCP. And then now when the leader changed, he just followed the public opinion. So basically, internationally, a whole alliance to contain CCP has formed. How strong will they be? I don't know. We'll see. But indeed, the alliance has formed.
Yeah, and just as Professor Alicia Kempe analyzed, my takeaway is that really for people, the citizens mm-hmm. in United States or around the world, who really affected by this pandemic, which is caused by CCP, one way or the other, have to voice out. And when they voice out, after all, we are still in a free country, a democratic country. The leaders have to, listen to people. Mm. So And she also mentioned that especially in around the world, there are a lot of people just talking about having the Chinese Communist government to pay back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like President Trump said, we should totally ask for $10 trillion, and that's not so much actually. So Professor Kempe said that even if just a very small portion of the people could do that, just really act on it, and she felt it will have a big effect on China, because then the China's economy will stop growing, and when China's economy stop growing, then the leadership will lose the legitimacy to rule, and it will get opposition from the people inside China, and that could mean the fall of the CCP's control. So, yeah, and so for people to really seek for the responsibility of the Chinese Communist government on this pandemic is very important.
Yeah, so I just want to give my comment at the end of this topic. So the main reason, as we all know, that those democratic leaders, the leaders of those nations, right? They are pressured by the public in their own country. So many people die, and we won't hold you accountable. So they turn around, they try to hold the CCP accountable, which is actually not wrong, okay? But the world has gone a long way to today. Okay, how CCP treat Hong Kong, how they treat Taiwan, how they treat China's East and the South China Sea, how they treat the Muslims in the Xinjiang, the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, and how they steal intellectual property, and how they carry out a cyber attack, how their diplomats have this wolf type of attack. This all built up. Okay, in Chinese we call it like 出来混是要还的. All the debt that you have built up, you are paid for it someday. That's the reckoning time. This is what I see today. So with the backlash from associated with the virus, loss, casualty, right? And then it's built up a big wave against CCP, and CCP from now on going forward, they won't win any friend. I dare to say so. They won't win any friend. And Professor Kempe's word is very important. We may be at the stage, at the eve of some major change in China. Okay, so yeah, just mark my word and see what would happen. So, we know that we have a lot of problems in this country, right, in the United States. But I want to say this, okay. If CCP were to disappear, okay, the world will, rid itself of a very bad tumor. A lot of bad things coming out of there, because they have no value, they are very corrupted, and they are very 腐蚀, they corrupt other country, and all the business and the politicians who deal with them, they corrupt them. Okay, it's like a cancer spreading in the world, and also including spreading into this country, United States of America, okay, which has its own value based upon freedom and morality. So we all want to see CCP gone. Okay, that's a good thing for the world. And then the consequence or the benefit we will sense that, we'll see that when that happens in this country. So that's why I ask you to take note of this. Okay, be closely observing what would be developing in China, and yeah,
it will have an effect on our country here and around the world. Yeah, because no matter how direly we think the situation is in the United States, we agree, but really the root problem lies in the CCP.
Yeah.
Maybe some may not agree at this moment, but just from our experience and what we see, what we hear, CCP is really the root of a lot of the problems. Maybe not all of the problems, but a lot of the problems.
Yeah. And Frog Lizard, you said, you both are wonderful, and I greatly appreciate the very informative news you deliver daily. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Frog. And any other comment on today's topic? I know that sometimes I was talking to Kathy right before the show. I said, are our audience, interested in this topic? This is a G7, has to do with China. The entire today's topic is on China. So I was actually kind of wondering whether you guys will like this news or you care more about domestically what's happening around us, close to us. Let us know, because we need to strike a balance about what news to pick, because indeed this is important to the world and consequently to our country, the United States of America. So, and we have to explain that and things like that. So let us know how you think, and also stay with us. We are actually working on some ideas about how to beef up our show, how to improve our show, bring that to another level. And then we'll need your feedback, and we'll need you as you are our core audience at this time. And thank you very much. Send us your feedback, and that'll be it.
Okay, no joke today?
No, I'm sorry, no joke today. I'm being a little overwhelmed lately, okay? But I will come back to that. As I said, we need a little light spirit. Not today, but Beaumont, Michaels, hit that like button. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Kitty Hawk in the beginning already said, still remember the Chinese words that I taught you guys. Yeah, so it's love America, freedom. Freedom of this beautiful country.
Yeah, I want to read this. It's just catching my attention. Chuck Frenzy said, the CCP has taken over the state of Oklahoma. Oh, really? They are buying up to 10 to 15 acre tracts all over each county. Many counties have upward of 100 properties with what appears to be camps growing pot. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So actually, I would suspect what Chuck is reporting is very important. Actually, recently I did an interview with a investigative reporter from Canada. He was one of the things he was talking about is similar to what Chuck is referring to. It's in Canada, but the reporter also said that it's happening in United States as well. So I just need, I will do some post-production of the interview and present to you. It's very stunning discovery of how the Chinese Communist government is infiltrating Canada and the West world in different fronts. Mm-hmm. It's kind of scary, but so I will present that to you pretty soon.
Okay, and especially I want to read this. And Anasella Watson, thank you. We love you here. We love you here. World News too, sending us love, light, and the bless from the Philippines. Wow, that's far. Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching us.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff said, "Away, I'm sick of phony G7 dorks that think they are better than us, Biden's sons." Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for fighting.
Thanks, I understand that. Yeah. No one outside China. Okay, Louis said no one outside China can eradicate the CCP. It has to be done from the Chinese people. You're right.
Yeah.
We may be seeing that coming. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Let's hold our breath, and something's brewing there. And indeed, in terms of the philosophy that I believe in, yeah, like all the debt you have built up, you have to pay for it someday. There's no runaway. That's what CCP has been doing, building up debt, to the people in China and into this world over this last 10 decades, right? It's about the 100th so-called anniversary of the CCP's life. And I think they're coming to an end soon. Okay, let's stay hopeful.
Yeah. Well, I just saw Kitty Hawk say today is Donald Trump's 75th birthday.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
Happy birthday to
President Trump.
President Trump.
Okay.
All right. So people are counting. You owe 2 jokes.
Oh, I owe you. Okay.
Peter said that.
Okay, we'll do the count. Okay, I'll pay back. That's my debt. All right.
All right.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Yeah. Until
Bye-bye.
Wednesday. Bye bye.